In today's episode, we're talking about a case that's straight from Rick's cyclopedia. It's a case that he's wanted to speak about to expose the barbarism of this particular monster. And although I'm the one narrating, the story came straight from Rick's fingertips. The case I'm talking about is the case of Chris Watts. Listen now on Love and Murder. Welcome everyone, welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, the weekly true crime podcast discussing relationships gone terribly wrong, where our motto is,
you're either someone's last love or their first murder.
That was Rick, by the way. Today, I am your host, Kai. Well, I'm your host, Kai, every day, and we don't have a co-host because something's going on with our technical stuff. We can't figure it out, but we still got to do a show, so the show must go on. As a reminder, our show discusses true crime cases told in the form of a story with mystery, suspense, and just a little bit of humor sprinkled on top. However, as I always have to say this, never at the expense of the victim. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder on whatever platform you're on, as well as give us 5 stars review right now so you don't forget. If you're new here, then welcome. Listen to the episode first and then please rate us. Unless you want to rate us first, but if you rate us first, just give us 5 stars. In today's episode, we're discussing a horrible crime of Chris Watts. So grab your butts, grab your apple juice, and I want to first remind you to head on over to our Patreon, where our last bonus episode was us talking about what it's like to be a true crime podcaster. It's not what everyone thinks it is, so tune in and you'll find out more. www.patreon.com/loveandmurder. And we'll talk more about our Patreon later on in this episode. Now, on to the show. On January 10th, 1984, Shannon Catherine Ruzek was born in Aberdeen, North Carolina, to parents Sandra and Frank. On May 16th, 1985, Christopher Lee Watts was born in Spring Lake, North Carolina, to parents Ronnie and Cindy Watts. Chris and Shannon met sometime in 2010, getting married on November 3rd, 2012, in Mecklenburg County. They eventually moved into a 5-bedroom home in Frederick, Colorado in early 2013 and welcomed their firstborn daughter, Bella, into the world on December 17, 2013. Her younger sister, Celeste, also known as Cece, was born on July 17, 2015. Shannon would often make posts on social media about her family. She had videos of herself and Chris hugging their children and baking cookies. One post that she made in April of 2018 was in regards to Chris, captioned, quote, "Happy Husband Appreciation Day." This Instagram post then went on to say, quote, "I couldn't imagine a better man for us. You spoiled us with love and attention. You put up with 3 impatient, demanding women in the house. You work so hard every day to provide for us. I love you so much," end quote. Chris worked for Anadarko Petroleum, a hydrocarbon exploration company. Shannon worked for a multi-level marketing company called Level that sold a weight loss supplement called Thrive. Despite both spouses being employed, the family had to declare bankruptcy in 2015. Around May of 2018, Shannon became pregnant with their 3rd child, who they were going to name Nico. On Monday, August 13, 2018, Shannon returned from a business trip and was dropped off at home at 1:48 a.m. by her friend Nicole Atkinson. Nicole had agreed to take Shannon to a scheduled gynecology appointment later that morning. When Nicole attempted to contact Shannon about her appointment, her texts and phone calls went unanswered. When Shannon also missed a business meeting that day, Nicole decided to go to her house and look for her around 12:10 p.m. When she knocked on the door, there was no answer. Nicole noted that Shannon's shoes were still sitting in the front door and her car was still in the garage, so she called Chris to let him know what was going on. He in turn called the Frederick Police Department from work. An officer was dispatched to the house at around 1:40 p.m. where he spoke to Nicole. After she explained her concerns that, Shannon was 15 weeks pregnant and no one could find her, the officer attempted to do a welfare check. With the door still going unanswered, the officer attempted to knock on multiple other doors and windows. He also asked some of the neighbors if they had seen Shannon that day, to which they responded with no. The officer called Chris and asked for his permission to enter the house, and Chris said that he was on his way home. When Chris got home, he let the officer into the house. Now, instead of going into the house and calling out for his wife and daughters, Chris first went to the garage to inspect her car. He then went in through the side door and let the police officer in through the main door. Inside, the family dog was found unharmed, but Shannon and their 2 girls were missing. They couldn't find them anywhere. Chris himself noted that the girls' blankets were gone and that Shannon's wedding ring was left on the nightstand in their bedroom. So I guess, it's trying to look like she took the children and she was leaving him, so she left her wedding ring as evidence that I don't want to be with you. During this time, Chris looked like he was texting on his phone a lot, but he never picked it up to make any phone calls, which is kind of weird because if your wife and your kids are missing, and even if you see, supposed evidence that she took the kids and left, you're going to be calling nonstop. Like, nobody's going to walk out with my child and I'm just going to be like, well, text. No, I'm calling you. I want to hear from you where you are. No. Anyways, Shannon's phone was then found inside the couch. The police officer asked Chris if their marriage was rocky, and he admitted that they were going through a separation. Chris claimed that the separation was, quote, civil for the most part. One of Chris's neighbors, Nathan, I don't know how to say that last name, offered to show the officer video of the surveillance equipment outside of their house. In this video, Chris can be seen loading several unidentifiable items into his truck early that morning. Chris and the officer were standing in Nathan's house at this time, and he later pointed out that Chris seemed almost unable to watch himself in the video. When Chris left the house, the officer stayed to speak directly with Nathan. Nathan told police, quote, "He's not acting right at all. He's never fidgety. He's never rocking back and forth. He never loads stuff from his garage." Nathan then went on to detail that he and his wife worried that Shannon had gone missing during her business trip because, quote, "I had heard them full on scream at each other at the top of their lungs, and he gets crazy," end quote. He also described Chris as, quote, "normally quiet and real subdued, and a very reserved, introverted person who never talks, but he was awfully talkative while trying to explain what he was doing in the video surveillance." Chris agreed to be interviewed by 2 separate news outlets that next day. During his interviews, he seemed very distant and inward while answering questions. This led police to wanting to question him further. Chris gave the police his phone number under the assumption that they were going to go through his contacts to look for potential suspects. The answers that Chris gave to the interrogators were mostly very, very long and very, very detailed, which is usually not a good sign. Usually when, you question someone and they have nothing to hide, they just literally answer matter-of-factly. "Where were you on Sunday?" "I was at the store." As opposed to, "Where were you on Sunday?" "Well, first I woke up at 9 a.m. I went to brush my teeth. I drained the lizard. Then I took a shower. I decided to part my hair on the left-hand side rather than the right." You see the difference? Chris tried to explain things like they were trying to stay together for the kids, and they often talked through their issues. The questioning officer had some semi-confrontational things such as, quote, "Nicole seems more worried than you do." These statements were essentially pointing the finger at Chris, but he didn't question if the officer was suspicious of him, which most people will be like, "Why are you asking me these questions?" or "Why are you saying this?" Of course I'm worried. Nicole is a different person than me. But he didn't say anything. Cliffhanger Kai's back to give you your weekly reminder to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode, and we'd be ever so greatly if you would leave us a 5-star review on the platform of your choice. Also, come on over and join us at our exclusive LAM community on Patreon at www.patreon.com/loveandmurder. Once you become a subscriber, you get access to commercial-free episodes so you don't have to hear this particular interruption, Crazy Crime Corner, Love Obsessions, Serial Killer Corner, Getting to Know the Host, Behind the Scenes, True Crime Games, and so much more. We have so much fun over there, so come on and join starting at only $1 a month. But you can get so much more with our $5 and above tiers. Don't miss out. www.patreon.com/loveandmurder. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe right now and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on new content. It helps us greatly, and we'll thank you before, now, and after. Now, we resume our regularly scheduled program. A common technique used by police interrogators is the pause. After asking a question, the officer will not respond once you've given your answer. In this instance, Chris kept talking when the officer had no reply. That's a sign of someone who is really guilty and uncomfortable. So that's usually why you ask your question and you pause. What are you doing on Sunday? And even if they say, I went grocery shopping. So you just don't say anything, and then they're just like, and then I bought meat and I decided that my kids need it, and they just keep talking. So Chris kept talking when the officer had no reply, and during his ramblings, Chris went on to say, quote, I would never harm my kids. I would never harm my wife. You can talk to any of my friends or any of her friends. They know me. I'm a low-key guy. I'm quiet. I'm not about confrontation. I'm not about anything that elevates to that level. If someone yells at me or screams at me, I just take it. The interrogator asked Chris, when we find the guy who did this, what should we do to him? And Chris responded with, life in prison. That's what I would think. Now, if someone asked you, if we found the guy who did this to your wife and kids, without first of all knowing what was wrong with your wife and kids, or your husband and kids or whatever, what would your response be? So let's say without knowing what was wrong. Wouldn't your response be like, well, we don't know what happened yet, so let's not jump the gun. You know what I'm saying? They could just be out there, could just be that they left me, they took the kids, whatever, and we just need to find where they are, but my kids are fine. That would be your first answer. Or if you do know that something happened to them, you would say life in prison? I would be like, I just need a day alone. I need immunity. I need an empty garage or an empty industrial area. I'm going to request some tools, and I need a day alone with this person. That would be my answer. But anyway, Chris's response was life in prison. That's what I would think. The officer asked Chris if he'd be willing to take a polygraph test, and Chris agreed to come back the next day. Why can't you just do it right now? Why do you have to come back? The polygraph administrators explained to Chris, quote, if you had something to do with their disappearance, it would be really stupid for you to be here today. And she really hammered home how dumb it is for him to be there if he was the one responsible for something that happened to Shannon and 2 girls. As a further intimidation tactic, she put Chris through a, quote, directed lie test. This includes her giving him easy questions to answer, but he was supposed to answer them wrong on purpose. The polygrapher then congratulated Chris and thanked him for being a terrible liar. So basically, she's building him up. Oh yeah, you're a horrible liar. Oh yeah, you'll pass this test if you're telling the truth, no problem. After they did the real test, the polygrapher and interrogating officer came back to Chris and said, quote, it was completely clear that you were not honest during the test. End quote. Chris attempted to deny this, but the officer put a stop to it immediately. No. Just relax. After jailing Chris for some time, they eventually let him talk to his father, Ronnie. Chris then admitted to his dad that he failed the polygraph test. And then Ronnie was like, well, just tell us what really happened. Just tell the truth. Tell the officers what really happened. We won't look down on you. So Chris decided to tell his story. A story. He claimed that he allegedly found Shannon choking the girls and that he killed her in retaliation. Supposedly, he was too late to save his daughters. So he was the hero coming out to save, his kids from this bad, horrible woman. The detectives then came back into the room as soon as Ronnie mentioned the word lawyer. The detectives then had Chris direct them via a map to where he buried the bodies. So again, if this is what happened, then you killed her in retaliation, then you were like, oh, snap, and I gotta go bury these bodies, or that. The whole story just doesn't make sense. Anyways, the detectives poked a hole in his stories by noting that Chris did nothing to save his daughters in the scenario that he presented. Like I said, the whole story didn't make sense. You noticed that she was strangling your daughter, so you hit her upside the head, and then you were just like, well, they're dead. Like, you didn't try to do CPR. You didn't try and call 911. Like the detective said, he went straight to burying them instead of calling 911 to potentially revive them. That's, doesn't make sense. This led to him admitted to straight up murdering his wife and children. So I guess because he couldn't come up with a better story, he was just like, all right, well, you caught me. Yeah, I did it. That's what he said. So Chris was arrested on August 15th, 2018, and he later told his lawyer that Bella had walked in on him after he had assaulted Shannon. He then told her that Shannon was just feeling sick. He loaded Shannon's body into the car and drove to an oil storage owned by his employer and suffocated the two little girls. Like, what the He buried Shannon in a shallow grave and placed the girls' bodies in a crude oil storage tank. How cold can you be? After Chris was arrested, a man by the name of Trent Bolt claimed that he and Chris had been in a sexual relationship. In these claims, he said that he and Chris met online in 2017 and that they met in person shortly after. He detailed how Chris was allegedly struggling with a gay or bisexual identity and that his marriage to Shannon was a loveless trap. The pair supposedly separated in 2018 before Chris committed the murders. Everything else that Trent said about the situation was nothing that hadn't already been released by the media, and his story wasn't very credible. So basically, this guy just came out trying to get 5 minutes of fame, trying to say that, he had a relationship with Chris, but it was completely untrue. It should be noticed that when police took his phone during the previous interview, they found evidence that he was having an affair, but it was with a woman by the name of Nicholkessinger. Nicole was interviewed on August 16th by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and she spent 3.5 hours detailing the affair and Chris's behavioral changes leading up to the murder. Inside Edition would later report in June of 2021 that Chris had confessed to putting oxycodone in Shannon's system, hoping for her to have a miscarriage. Oh my God. What a trash human. He did this because he wanted to be with Nicole and thought it would be easier if Shannon were not pregnant. Okay. Supposedly, he had also tried smothering his daughters while they were still in their beds, but failed. So you tried to kill... Apparently, I have no words. Anyway, this trash human tried to kill his baby within her system because he wanted to be with some other woman. And then he tried to kill his kids while they were in their bed but failed in doing that. Not because he felt like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. But because it just didn't work out. So what do? If at first you don't succeed, try again yet. All because you wanted to be with a woman? But how do you know if this woman found out that you had murdered your entire family, you freaking idiot, that she would have still been with you? On August 21st, Chris was charged with 3 counts of FDM. First-degree murder. Unlawful termination of a pregnancy and 2 counts of death of a child not yet 12 years of age and within his position of trust, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased body. At this time, he was given a $5 million bail after he was denied bail completely during a previous hearing. He pled guilty on November 6, 2018 to all 3 murders. Shannon's family, the father, mother, and brother, requested not to put forward the death penalty as they did not want any further deaths to come of this situation. They were very supportive of Chris's decision to make a plea deal. Chris's parents, Shannon's parents, and Shannon's brother all gave their own statements during the trial. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually post video to our Patreon for our lovely lambs to be able to hear this video and watch this video. So if you want to see that, head on over to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/loveandmurder, and become a member of the $5 and above tier. Chris was given 5 life sentences on November 19th with an additional 48 years for the unlawful termination of pregnancy and 36 years due to tampering with the deceased. On December 3rd, 2018, Chris was moved to an out-of-state location, and on December 5th, he was placed at the Dodge Correctional Institution. Nicole reportedly moved away from Colorado immediately after Chris's trial was over. She claimed in one of her interviews, quote, "My name is about to be slandered for probably a while. I don't know how long it's going to take to heal, but I would not be surprised if it's going to be hard to go out in public sometimes for a couple of years." End quote. And that is the story of Chris Watts. What do y'all think about this case? As you can see, during the retelling of the case, I was at a loss of words. So that's what I think about this freaking crazy case. Let us know your thoughts in the comment below, or if you want your comments heard on air, head on over to our website, www.murderandlove.com. That's love and murder backwards, murderandlove.com, and click on our brand new shout out system or our SOS system. I don't know if you could hear that noise in the background, but okay. It's right there on our homepage and you can't miss it. Record your comment and it will be played at the end of the next episode. If you like this episode, then head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and rate us 5 stars. You can also download Good Pods and rate us there too. You can say whatever you want in the description, but what it does, it brings us up in the charts so others can find us just like you did. And it really, really helps us out. And we want to thank you before, during, and after you leave your review. Don't forget to visit us on Patreon to become an exclusive member of the L&M community. You get commercial-free episodes, full-length early release episodes of Love and Murder, as well as some extras of whatever case we're covering. Like with this case, you're going to get videos and pictures and everything like that. You also get bonus content like cases about love obsessions or cases of the craziest crimes, or Serial Killer Corner. Our next bonus episode that's coming out is a compilation of crazy crimes. You don't want to miss it. You also get host stories, behind the scenes, and so much more. We have options starting at only $1 a month, so come on over. Follow us on social media at facebook.com/relationship crime, Instagram at Love Murder Podcast. Join our Facebook fan group by searching Love and Murder fan page in Google or Facebook, or by simply clicking on the link in the show notes below. Find our awesome merch by going to our website, www.murderandlove.com, and clicking on Shop in the menu above, which our shop is currently going through a renovation. And an easy and free way to help us out is by simply sharing this episode. Share with your mom, share with your brother, share with your sister, share with your dog, share with your friends, share on your social media. Share. And as always, we end this episode by reminding you to
Lock your doors at night.
That was Rick, by the way. But also that it's all love and no murder, y'all. Bye.